let's, I guess,
All right, I'm rolling.
let's get rolling. All right, what's up, everybody? My name's Matt. I'm one of the co-founders here at Maverix, and I'm here today with Justin Barton, who runs Pickleball, etc. Justin was one of the, I guess, designers behind the Havik 2 paddle, and so Justin's nice enough to give me a little bit of time to pick his brain and let him kind of geek out and tell you guys about some of the things that we did within the build of this paddle and why we did it. And so one of the first things that I wanted to start with was kind of asking Justin about, or having you tell us a little bit about your background and how you got into paddle consultant, because I think that it's interesting and cool.
Okay. Hey, thanks for having me, by the way, Matt. I'm excited to talk about the Havik 2. I know this is something that, you and I have been excited about for months behind the scenes. So it's cool to finally be sharing with everybody. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Justin, Pickleball, etc. Some people may know me as, and what I do is basically product development consulting for pickleball companies, which is a fancy way of saying, I try to help people build good paddles. This is pretty cool. A little nod to the Havik. You actually put my initials on there. I think that's my first time. It says JB on there. So, but yeah, to answer your question of how I got into it, first off, just me as a person, I'm just a huge gear nerd. So anything that I like to do, whether it's pickleball or anything else, I'm always going to be the guy who just dives way too deep and learns just all the unnecessary things about it. So I definitely did that with pickleball when I started playing. And initially I was just doing on the work side, just private testing for some companies. So basically like what a reviewer would do, but sort of behind the scenes, I would test prototypes, I would give feedback. And then I would often dissect them as well, and then let the companies know, hey, here's the playability report. Also, here's what I noticed with the construction. And I was doing this while I still had my other corporate full-time job. And then business picked up as I learned more and I got better, and maybe more companies got interested in those types of services. And I kind of expanded that portfolio of things that I do. And I feel super grateful. It's been about exactly a year now that I've been doing just this full time. And it's a ton of fun. I get to basically work and, have a passion in the same industry. And it's been great. So, and now I get to do things like this. It's been long enough. I'm finally able to talk about some of the things I've been working on behind the scenes. So I love it. It's been awesome.
That's awesome, and it's crazy in pickleball. I mean, it's really been the past 2 or 3 years or 3 years or so that things have really picked up, and how many people that I know like yourself that have been able to go from a corporate job into something that they absolutely love and make a career and a life out of it. So I think it's awesome that you were able to take the step away and obviously follow your passion and do what you love.
Yeah, thanks.
So. Thanks for giving us that background. So I wanted to then kind of move into how you and I got started, because the story kind of starts when I started Maverix. When I grew up, I had a little bit of a mechanical background and always tinkering, building whatever, working on motorcycles. And when I got into Maverix, what really interested me was the paddle design and materials and all that stuff. And at first I was able to kind of wing it and kind of working with the manufacturers and just kind of, shooting from the hip and making things happen. But the paddle market has progressed so quickly and so much that I quickly realized, and I was humbled to the fact that it's far exceeded, my level of knowledge. And that's where, somebody like you, I had to turn to, and so we could work with more intention. So, I kind of wanted to talk about how you and I got started, and I found you obviously from your Pickleball Pursuit podcast. So when I first reached out to you, I talked about our Havik design and wanting to come up with something new for a new paddle. And one of the things that I had told you was, because this shape is very unique to Maverix, while it can be polarizing, I wanted to at least stick with that and see if we can build something out of that. And so I gave you some different guidelines, wanting to, again, stick with this shape, try to make sure that we enhance the maneuverability and the swing weight and twist weight profiles, and then obviously getting some power out of it. So I guess I wanted to ask you, about those initial thoughts when you and I first got talking about building this paddle.
Yeah. So, you mentioned the shape right away. Like this is the Mavericks. This is your Havik shape. It's actually the name of the shape. So this paddle is called the Havik too, but the Havik is the name of this shape with the kind of cut corners, elongated top. And for those of you who know, Mavericks has been doing this longer than every other brand that has been doing this. Well, let's just say every other performance brand, because maybe there's been a couple low-level paddles, but really we're seeing kind of a move towards this, chopped top corners look on performance paddles, and there's a reason for it. And the reason, of course, is the reason you design this paddle like this is you want to bring the balance down, bring the maneuverability up, so lower the swing weight, while still maintaining the same, 16.5-inch elongated reach. And you would think, like, these little corners, that doesn't do much, but it actually does.
Yeah.
And we'll kind of get into the specs of this specific paddle, and that'll be obvious. But honestly, all of your previous paddles in this shape were also quite low swing weight for their elongated shape.
Right.
But yeah, to get into this Havik 2, I think when we first started talking, you had sort of a wish list of, hey, this is what I envision. This is what I want for the brand. This is what I want my next paddle to be. And then your question or challenge to me is, how do we make that?
Right.
Go wild within these parameters, so to say, which I actually really enjoy, by the way. I don't know if I've told you this, but that's great for me. If someone can give me like a little bit of direction, point me in the right direction and then shoot, that's the best case scenario, because now I know what I'm working towards. I have, tangible goals, but also at the same time, there's plenty of freedom. Like,
Right.
I think you and I have a lot of trust in our working relationship.
Right.
So that was great. So yeah, I agree with you, by the way, that, we talked early on about this shape, and you were like, I think I want to keep it, even though other companies are mostly doing flat top elongated or these other things. You were talking about keeping the Mavericks identity with the Havik shape. And I agreed with you at the time. I thought, hey, this is part of your brand identity. This is part of your, brand differentiation.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, the pickleball market is flooded. So if you can differentiate in a meaningful way that has a real purpose behind it, then you should do it.
For sure.
And that's been the great thing about this shape. It does exactly what you said. It ups maneuverability while keeping the reach. And then your sort of wish list, which you already alluded to, said, hey, we want to accentuate that even more. Like, we want to make it feel even more maneuverable, but also let's add some stability in, which, in the form of twist weight. And we want to up the power for the modern game.
Right.
So that's how we started. And that was sort of the wish list. You want me to go ahead and go into all the details of the core, or what are you thinking?
Yeah, hold on one second. So I wanted to piggyback onto that before we get in there. So, and obviously you're a lot more fluid at this than I am. So, yeah, regarding the core, and one of the conversations that I had with you, and something that I also kind of used you for, was bouncing, I guess, branding and brand direction ideas off you, because you have your finger on the pulse when it comes to kind of what the paddle market's seeing and what you guys want. One of the challenges for me has always been, obviously with the paddle shape, it is unique. It can be polarizing. Now, I've always followed the vision that kind of trying to stay in the niches, trying to differentiate ourselves, but it is not easy at all, because you're having to convince people and show them why the shape might be better. And it takes a lot more time, rather than going with a standard shape and just having this explosive success. And while I would love to have that, my biggest concern, again, I'm not saying this is right, is that if we were to follow the traditional shapes, that yes, we could possibly, strike gold and do really well on one paddle, but then 6 months later, somebody else comes out with the same shape, and then, you're just kind of vanished off the face of the earth again. And so I've followed this direction, and when you and I first started talking, like I said, I wanted to stick with this shape, knowing that it is a lot tougher to convince the mainstream market, but I think that it's just the slow baby steps. So, anyways,
yeah, you got the long-term plan, which I like, because it's actually really easy to do exactly what you said and sort of be a one-hit wonder and then get lost in the mix.
Right.
We've seen that from a lot of brands. They have one amazing paddle, and then it's like, if it's kind of too similar to everything else, it's really easy to just get lost in the mix and not be able to follow that up with anything else that's differentiated.
Right.
So you're sticking to your guns.
Yeah.
Your brand is your brand. And I love it, actually.
Yeah.
And you're already seeing a lot of the reviews come in from the Havik 2.
Right.
And it's so cool to see because like you've been sharing them with me.
Right.
And a lot, like the common thread is, ooh, I didn't think I was going to like this.
Right.
But then I was pleasantly surprised.
Absolutely.
You know, so good on those people for giving it a chance.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe this is a paddle that you need to, you know, put your bias aside for a second and just play pickleball.
Right.
You know, and I can tell you that too because I have a similar bias. I was like, oh man, you know, like I love backhand flicks. It's a big part of my game, and I'm thinking, oh no, these top corners are chopped off. Am I going to lose some sweet spot up here? Am I going to hit the edge more often than not? But once you get out there and you just play and you don't think about it, it actually doesn't really happen. So I honestly don't notice it. I think this shape, to me, in hand, feels and plays kind of more like a hybrid shape, just given the balance and the maneuverability.
For sure.
But like I said, you still have that little bit of extra reach for things like flicks and volley dinks,
Right.
which is nice. So yeah, like I said, you were onto it maybe a couple years before everyone else
We'll see.
started chopping the corners.
I might look crazy down the road, but I don't know. We'll keep chopping at it and see what happens. But just to your point about the paddle playing like a hybrid, you know, one of the challenges that I've had, especially as of recent, is trying to inform the mainstream or the people that are cold to the brand, that haven't really heard of the brand, why it is okay to try this shape of paddle. And you know, one of the comparisons that I use or that I always talk about is the fact that like if you're used to playing with an elongated paddle, and let's say that you got a standard shaped paddle in your hand and went and played with it, you're not going to hit that standard shaped paddle in the sweet spot every time. You're going to hit the edge guard because your hand-eye coordination is adjusted to an elongated paddle. And to me, you know, it's the same thing that goes with this shape where it can be a little bit daunting at first, but you have to give it a little bit of time and you kind of feel the benefits from it. So
yeah, I'm with you. I actually think that this shape is really easy to transition to for either elongated or hybrid players. Personally, that's my thought. But yeah, if you're coming from a standard or a wide body, any elongate, it's going to take some adjustment. But yeah, so it's cool, man. It's cool to see people trying this paddle and to hear more feedback, and you know, we'll hear even more, I'm sure, and I can't wait.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. So the next thing that I'll dive into here was when you and I got started. Again, we talked about kind of some of the parameters that we wanted to work within. You came up with a CAD drawing of the core, which was awesome. How you're able to do that. That's a huge benefit because working with China, especially when I was doing it, I do it with a lot of pictures. And when you're able to give me a CAD drawing of exactly the dimensions, exactly, you know, the lengths and widths of all the foam that we want in different places, that is huge, and we can just deliver it right to them. But one of the first things that you did was once you designed the core, you gave me a list of like 16 different variations of foams that we can try. You know, we could try this density, you know, in the high density foam, this in the low density, and all this different stuff. And that's you know, the time where I went, this is why I hired you, because I have no idea. I didn't even know that we can use those different densities of foam. And so it was cool because we were able to try all those different prototypes and then kind of dial into what we thought felt best. So that was kind of awesome.
So to talk on that process real quick. You know, most paddles are manufactured in China. And of course, there can be a language barrier. But do you know what you don't have to translate is millimeters?
Right.
So that's why I've learned, you know, in my work that if I can just build files, so full CAD files, DXF files that they can use directly on their machines, there's never any translation errors. Like then you never wait 3 weeks to get a sample paddle, play with it, cut it open and see, oh man, this isn't what I wanted. Like, and then, oh man, it was just because it was a miscommunication. So you get to avoid all those miscommunications whenever you work in files. So that's been my go-to way, and honestly, it's made a big difference on the efficiency of sampling. I can provide the files to them. They can use them directly on their machine, and the foam or the core layouts and the different things that we specify honestly come in exactly like they were specified, which is really nice. And, you know, props to them for that. And to speak to your, you know, 16 different densities, I don't know if it was quite that many, but it was a lot. I think it was 15 samples, right? Um,
For some,
but
the number 18 sticks out in my head. I think that I had
it might have been
18. I think I had 18 samples initially. It was either 16 or 18, but it was a lot.
on the first
Yeah,
round. Well,
yeah,
and to explain that to the viewers, it's
yeah.
because we're sampling from China, and then they have to make the paddles, and it takes a while to ship, right? And then you might want to make some changes, and then there's a second round. So you kind of want to try to cover as many bases as you possibly can on the
Right,
first round.
right.
So that's why we ordered multiple different variations of this paddle, and the variations are, like you said, foam types, foam densities, the layup type. So we're talking about how many layers of carbon fiber, is there fiberglass in it,
Right.
what's the orientation, all these different things. And then from there, you will narrow down through play testing and all that to find the one that you like the best. Of course, and then it's off to USAP testing, in this
Yeah.
case, to make sure all is good. But what was cool about this round of testing with the Havik 2 is I felt like, to me at least, there were, let's say, two kind of winners,
Right.
pretty clear.
Right.
And honestly, I think that one of them, what this paddle is, ended
Yeah.
up being the better version. Those two maybe just came down to preference on feel.
Right.
So it always feels a little bit satisfying whenever you say, let's cover all our bases,
Right.
and then sure enough, you feel like accomplished because, hey, we did what we needed to do to find the right configuration. So this wasn't just like a one shot guess. Hey, let's just try this. It was very intentional, and we tried all the different variations that we could in order to dial in all the metrics, the swing weight and the twist weight, but also make sure that the playability is good.
Yeah. Absolutely. No, it was a fun process. Okay, so then I want to move now into when we actually got these prototypes, and I guess, well, sorry, let me step back. I would like to kind of go into and let you take the reins and kind of geek out on this core design. And I have this
Okay.
paddle here that we can kind of talk about here, but if you wouldn't mind talking about just the way the core is designed, the different densities, and then the other thing I thought that was important was just the different layups, because we tried a carbon fiber, fiberglass, carbon fiber layup, and ultimately settled on carbon, carbon, carbon. And so it'd be great to hear from you as to the different feels and why we did what we did. So I'll kind of hold
Yeah.
this up, and I'll point to the different parts of the core here as you're talking.
So this was kind of part of your wish list again. We talked about let's bring Mavericks into 2026, right? Let's make a modernized version of the Havik. That's why this is the Havik 2. And what we know from the industry is there is a current build that performs really well, and it's this full foam floating core, right? So in this case, an EPP central core, and then EVA as the foam ring around the outside. And if you can see the paddle that Matt's holding up, that's the black in the center is EPP, and then the grayish color, the ring, is the EVA. And I'll get to the kind of unique third ring here in just a second, or not quite a ring, but the Wishbone. So we already know we wanted to start there, but while we're here, let's say, how can we make this better? How can we take what we know is good and make some small iterations? For me, I personally think that these full foam floating cores sometimes suffer from a little bit of a dead spot at the top when the EVA is too thick, because now you have a very soft foam that's taking up a good portion of the top of the paddle here. And if you happen to hit that soft foam or hit right where these foams meet, sometimes there can be a feeling of a dead spot. And this was particularly important with this shape because we've already taken away a little bit of real estate at the top. So we really need to make sure that every hit around the tip is going to feel really good and clean. So you'll notice right away that this ring of EVA isn't just a static ring, it's a variable width ring. So it's a little bit thinner at the top, and we did that to eliminate dead spots at the top for those flicks and reach in like volley dinks. Okay, now the second part is we wanted to expand the sweet spot vertically as much as possible. On an elongated, you have quite a long face, but usually like the bottom half of it is completely useless. You're never hitting down here on purpose, but sometimes in a hands battle you counter from here on accident, or maybe a reset here. And so you want to do what you can to have a little bit more energy return in the bottom of the face, just so it's more usable when you happen to have a shot hit down here. So there were a few things to accomplish this. While we're still talking about the floating foam core, one of the things we did was bring the low density EVA in closer at the bottom of the core, so the EVA actually gets thinner. The EPP actually gets thinner near the bottom here. And when you're bringing that floating foam ring in closer, you get more reactivity, more bounce back here. So that adds a little bit more energy return. And then sort of the special sauce of this paddle, the next part is the high density wishbone of foam. And that goes in the shape of basically a wishbone or a giant U. It starts very small up here, comes all the way around. And if you see it, his is dark black, all the way around the bottom, through the throat, and then back up the other side. This has two main purposes. The first purpose is to add stability for these same off-center hits. We all know from adding lead tape or weight that wherever you add weight on a paddle, it sort of expands the sweet spot towards that weight because you get less twisting. So adding a high density, heavier foam through here is going to add more stability side to side, and especially on the lower portion. And another reason that we do it is kind of the similar idea here is we want to up the twist weight. This is an elongated paddle, so it's only 7.5 inches wide. And how do we get more twist weight out of this paddle? Well, we need to localize weight along the perimeter. So we localize the weight starting here along the sides and then down through the throat. That's going to bring the balance point down and make it feel more maneuverable. So the two things we're adding, stability and maneuverability with that wishbone there in the throat. And honestly, I think it works really well. You're looking like you were going to say something. Do you have a thought?
I did have a thought. I did have a thought unrelated to this, but I'll piggyback on in just a second.
Okay. So the last thing real quick on the core to touch on, and this is something that's really easy to miss, is there is some internal weighting right here at 10 and 2. And this came from testing the prototypes like we did. We tested all of them and we said, okay, now we're down to our 2 finalists. Which ones do we like the most? And it was this one and one that had fiberglass, basically. And I thought that the feel and the control and the soft touch of this full carbon fiber version was much superior to the fiberglass version. The fiberglass one had more pop for sure, but it was a little bit more harsh. It might have bothered people with tennis elbow. And, it just didn't have the right ball feel that you want. So whenever we settled on the carbon fiber version, we noticed, hey, this is actually pretty light. We have some room to work with here. So I experimented with different weight setups, and Matt did as well. And we found that if you just add 2 grams right here at 10 and 2, that gives the paddle a lot more plow through, still keeps it right around 8 ounces or just a touch over with a very low swing weight. So there was basically no downside to doing it. So there is internal weighting, 2 grams on each side at the top corners. And I think that makes the paddle perform a lot better. And, this paddle, we talked about the fiberglass versus the full carbon version. It worked out, I think, that we went with the full carbon version. First off, just because it feels better. Right. But secondly, because you sent this in for testing, and this bad boy tested right on the max. Right on the max for USA PB core, right on the max for USAP deflection, which is the amount of pocketing that it has. And honestly, if you had gone with the fiberglass, that might have given you some trouble in testing. So another, I think, good decision that paid off and helped this get to market a little bit faster. Yeah. Last thing, real quick. I don't want to glaze over this because I feel like this is kind of something that hasn't been talked about very much, but this is a 15 millimeter paddle. Yeah. This is something that you've been doing since your old paddles, and I think it was a smart move. Right. Everyone's like 16 or 14, and you decided to make some 15 millimeter paddles to try to, take advantage of a little bit of the best of both worlds. Right. And I do think that it worked pretty well in the honeycomb paddles that you used to have. Right. And honestly, I think it works better with the foam. Right. Like if you don't tell people this is a 15, I'm curious. Yeah. If people don't know and they play with it, what would they say? I think you would get some people saying, oh, I bet it's a 16. I think you would get some people saying, I bet it's a 14. Right. So it truly does kind of play in the middle. Right. Which is a nice thing because the quote unquote disadvantages of having a thinner paddle is usually worse stability. Well, that's engineered in here. We already know this is a stable paddle from all the extra weight we engineered in through the high density foam and the internal weighting. So you don't really get that drawback, but you still get the offensive advantages of a slightly thinner, more maneuverable version of a paddle. So, see, even I almost forgot that part. Yeah. And that's actually a cool little part that is, a big part of the identity of the Havik 2.
Yeah, that's something that I haven't done a great job this round, kind of, I guess, quote unquote marketing, and not even marketing, but getting out there because it is unique, and I think that especially with how light and maneuverable this paddle is, it can easily be, thought that it's a 14 millimeter paddle, and then, but it does have a lot of control like a 16. So
Yeah.
I was going to say too, and this is a question you and I haven't even talked about this, but the way that this low density EVA foam is tapered to the top, I did think that was really unique. And it obviously helped with our swing weight, and then also, like you were saying, you get a little bit more energy return out of here too, because you don't have soft foam up here. With that being said, I don't think that I've seen a lot of paddles, and I say a lot because I off the top of my head I can't think of any that have actually tapered the foam like this, and I thought that was really unique because it does obviously serve the purposes of creating the trampoline effect with the core, but at the same time you are eliminating weight here so we could use it elsewhere. Like I said,
small iteration.
I don't know if
there are a few others.
Okay,
but I'll tell you that it's kind of a Pickleball etc. trademark.
Okay.
So every other one that I know about is because of me. It's my design. So
I love it.
It's something that I found early on that I was like, this is such an easy improvement on already a good design.
Right.
It's a small little thing. It's not like something huge that you're gonna blast out in marketing like this is the greatest paddle ever because the EVA is slightly thinner at the top. But like I said, whenever you already have all these amazing paddles and paddles are getting really good, what really starts to matter is these small iterations, these intentionalities.
Right.
So so that's, at least you put my initials on here. We'll say my initials, they just stand for my little Pickleball etc. trademarked variable foam ring.
So and just to speak to that, I do have a little bit of an artistic side to me, and when I go about designing all these paddles, I try to do everything with intention. And I was just answering a question yesterday about the name of the paddle that the people call it Havik, which whatever, I call it Havik because it's a spin-off of my daughter's name. Whenever I'm, and we kind of started this on the last paddles where we put the specs there, and I had handwritten them on prototypes, and people liked it. They liked that kind of prototype feel, so I kind of left this through the production. Well, it's always been important to me to try to, and I thought that it was cool, like the people that put in a lot of time and effort and work into trying to make a project come to fruition, they get recognized in some way, shape, or form. And so this was kind of my little artistic flair of kind of saying, thank you to you and Rick Howard, who did a lot of testing for me as well. And and then so that's kind of the story behind that. But every paddle kind of has some sort of there's some sort of stuff within the paddle that's either an ode to somebody, or like the 0520 at the bottom of this. That's that's actually my daughter's birthday.
Oh, cool.
So
I was wondering actually.
Nobody knows that. It's very random. It fits in there. But I don't know. I do that kind of stuff because the reason that I kind of got started with this was to her, and like that kind of stuff keeps me motivated and gives me inspiration to keep going. And I've always thought it was cool, like when you do this and it comes to fruition, you see the final product, and all of a sudden this paddle with your initials or my daughter's birthday is being used in Asia or wherever, right? And I've always thought it was just kind of cool. So that's that's why I did that.
To speak to this. Yes, first off, thank you for putting my initials on there. I didn't ask for this, nor did I know it was going to happen.
Yeah.
I had no idea it was going to be on there until I saw it, which is a really cool moment for me, too.
Yeah.
Just to see, I'm like, hey, wait a minute, that's me.
For sure. Yeah.
So, thanks. That's the type of guy Matt is. He's trying to lift others up, and, he's given me a ton of credit. I mean, he deserves a ton of credit, too, on this.
Yeah.
And that's why he keeps, texting me like, oh, you deserve so much credit. I'm like, bro, you deserve so much credit. This wouldn't have happened without you at all. I just made a CAD file, and did some testing.
No.
So to speak to these on here, I think this is a perfect segue to kind of talk about the numbers for the nerds.
Right.
And then go into, just real quick, you did a bunch of testing on various weight setups.
Right.
And like how, desirable that is. So on the paddle itself, you'll see... it says, if you can read this, swing weight 114, twist weight 6.5. Now, where this number came from is this was an average of like a ton of samples whenever these were made. And so this wasn't just like pulled out of nowhere or made to sound good. And that's like shockingly good for an elongated. 114 is really low. for an elongated for the swing weight, and 6.5 is really high for the twist weight. So we kind of achieved the goal there. And these come in at about 8.1 ounces. So it's not like you're just making the paddle super duper light to, achieve that low swing weight. It still has plenty of like stability and plow through because it's got like the weight of a normal paddle behind it.
Right.
Which is pretty cool. And then, you start getting the mass order, and, I see on this little sheet, you sent out a sheet to some of the reviewers.
Yeah.
Talking about the specs, and you were talking to me, and you were like, dude, I'm testing more of these, and the numbers came in, even lower in kind of a good way, right? So like you're advertising, 114 swing weight, but people might be getting paddles as low as like 109, 110
right.
for an elongated.
Right.
But still with these twist weights are up there, like 6.3, so it's still very high. Yeah, those are just impressive stats for people who like elongateds but don't like heavy paddles, which I think there is a significant little part of the market who is that way.
Right.
This is kind of the ideal paddle, and it's got a good sweet spot even in stock form. But beyond that, in the box, and the Maverix, by the way, the Havik 2 comes in like a super nice box. This is the box right here. Which is like cool of you to do. It's quite a customer experience whenever someone gets this and gets to open it. But you're also including in here the paddle cover, of course, but an extra overgrip and some little Maverix branded weights.
Right.
Which is pretty cool. Oh, you got them to show?
Yeah, I've got a couple here. I don't have the actual little pack. I've just got a couple of the little weights floating around, but I already have them here on the side of the paddle. But
perfect. Yeah. And Matt did all the homework ahead of time for you guys because he went through and used those included weights and did different setups. Let me put these weights at different positions along the paddle and then test the overall weight, swing weight, and twist weight. And you can get this paddle like set up to be just really maneuverable and super stable. Like I think you had one that was like a 7 twist weight while it was still only like a 115 swing weight, or 115 to 117-ish, we'll just say.
Yeah, it was low, yeah.
Yeah, super low for an elongated, but a 7 twist weight on elongated is like unheard of. And like I said, you already did that homework ahead of time, so you have posted this information for buyers of the Havik 2 to view. Right. Now, is that site or is that information on the QR code that's inside the box?
Correct. Yeah. So
I'll show.
Yeah, if you don't mind. So
I'll show. Yeah.
And this was something that I had been thinking about for a while, and this has always been a challenge to me. Is we get a lot of emails about how do I set up this paddle? How do I change the grip? So one thing I wanted to do on this paddle was, if you can see there, when you open up the box, there's a QR code and you scan it. That immediately takes you to a portion on our website, and you have 4 different options. And I know just kind of through learning that the humans become overwhelmed very easily. So I wanted to keep it as simple as possible. You have 4 options. You could either watch the whole setup video, you could watch a video on, or go to a tab on how to set up the weights, how to change the grip, or how to maintain your paddle. The basics of the paddle. And that was important to me because, again, like I always have to step back and look at, I guess, the customer that we're serving. And I think it's really easy to get caught up in the fact that like the core group or the little circle that we're within, the people that know how to put weight on their paddle, the people that know what twist weight and swing weight are, is a very, very, very small portion of the overall pickleball market. And so, and I would go play with guys all the time that are actually decent players that had no idea how to put weight on their paddle or no idea how to change the grip. And that just really got me thinking. And so what I wanted to do with this paddle was I wanted to make the user experience a little better, to where, yes, when you got it, if you had no idea how to weight your paddle, you kind of have multiple options where this paddle comes very light, to where if you're a woman that likes a light swinging paddle, or you just like a light paddle, great, don't put weight on it, and it's perfect like that out of the box. However, I wanted to make it too to where if you had no idea how to customize this paddle, you go to the QR code and I give you 3 options, 3 very simple options of where to start. We have the weights, put them in these different locations. Here's how the paddle will play. And again, I don't know, I thought that was important because it allows somebody that has no idea what they're doing to essentially feel the paddle in different configurations and what it can do in different configurations. So yeah, that's kind of that's why we did what we did. And I guess just
like
kind of
it.
going back to the overall experience, it's been something for me where like the weights cost more money, the adding the overgrip costs more money, the packaging costs more money. However, and I said this in one of the recent videos, there's just this part of me that when somebody is spending over $150 or $200, $300 on paddles now, yeah, gosh, I can't wrap my head around the fact that like you're getting some paddles in a bubble wrapped bag. And again, not to knock companies that do it. I totally understand why they do it. For me personally, it's really hard for me to sell a premium product in a brand and try and get that brand message across to somebody when I'm cutting corners. And again, like it cuts into the profits, but I don't. I think that in the big picture it works out. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's super cool. And let me ask you this. What's the price of this paddle? So right now, the Havik 2, what's the launch price? What's the MSRP?
The launch price is $164.99. Now, most reviewers, it's very common in pickleball, everybody has a discount code. And so you can find a 10% discount code from pretty much any reviewer, which brings the price down to just under $150. I think it's like $149.50 or something like that. So about $150 is what you can get this paddle for.
So with everything we've talked about, the performance, the differentiation, the brand experience of, kind of getting how to set up your paddle guide, plus getting it packaged really well, a super modern build, you're not sacrificing performance in any way, and it looks awesome. To get all that, let's just say around $150 in this market, that's really good value. Yeah. And I'm not just trying to like toot your horn here. I didn't tell you I was going to talk about this or bring it up, but it really is. So, and I get to see everyone in the market and I know the margins. So I know how much value you're actually passing on to your customers by choosing to pay extra for all these nice brand experience and still keeping the paddle affordable. So big props to you on that. Yeah. And speaking of real quick, the graphics, I think they look awesome. Yeah. People have asked a couple times, I think I know, but let me ask you, what's this like topographical map that you see here?
So I've had that question too. And when somebody asked me, I kind of went, shit. Like I wish that I would have taken a certain geographical location that had significance to me and taken that and put it into a topographic map, but I didn't. It literally is a topographic map. My buddy that I went to high school with, who's been a graphic designer for years, he actually, these were going to be the graphics on the Havik 15 paddles two and a half years ago. I just didn't like the way they turned out. Long story short, we revisited those. The topographic map actually has no significance. It's just
honest man. You could have been like, this is where my daughter was born. This is where my house is. This is where my fire station is. You could have said any
totally.
of that.
And once somebody asked me about that, I'm like, shit. I missed the mark. That was my opportunity to like do something really cool.
Next time.
Exactly, next time. So to answer your question, it does not have any significance. It just kind of, it looks cool. And I know like when we were designing this,
cool.
One of the things that Dusty, my buddy, I was telling him is I wanted this contrast between, like I like graphics on a paddle. However, I do think that when you go full face, it kind of like, it takes away from the premium feel for some reason in pickleball. Like you see a lot of the premium brands, they're kind of more basic and simple. And so I really liked the idea. I didn't like the whole face being printed, but I really liked the idea of doing this kind of prototype thing on the back and then this on the front. And it just kind of gives this clash of like, you have something a little bit erratic, the graphics, and then you have something basic. And so I think this is probably going to be our little signature going forward. Every paddle will probably be basic on the back just because I started doing it. And I don't know. I think it kind of gives it a cool little flair. Yeah. It's a cool little flair.
Yeah. I'm here for it. It's kind of an industrial design aesthetic. And for if any, people want to ask, I haven't played with this one, but I have another one. This is my pretty one. These lines are so small and thin, it does not affect spin. No. So don't worry. You're hitting the ball here. Like I'm feeling it with my finger. You can't feel a difference, and you definitely can't tell during play. Because sometimes people get nervous about graphics in the sweet spot, but yeah, with these, it doesn't affect spin at all. Spin is still really good
Yeah.
on this paddle. So
That's one of the things that I hear a lot, is spin that people get off the paddle, and I really would like to do some more digging or research, because in my head, and again, I have nothing to back this up, I believe that when you lower head weight, you can increase swing speed. When you increase swing speed, you essentially get more whip off the face of a ball and can create more spin. It all makes sense to me. I have no data to back that right now. But
well, I agree. But you do have another aspect of this paddle that you do have data to back up. This had the maximum allowable deflection, which essentially means pocketing. So when the ball is hitting, the face is deforming in a good way and really pocketing that ball, which lets it grab the ball more and spin it more. And you have the data to back that up. So
Absolutely.
I can tell you that's a big reason why the shot shaping and spin on this paddle is really good for sure.
Yeah.
One of the reasons,
Yeah, and speaking to that, I had asked you about it because when we hit the max on deflection, I had texted you and I'm like, is this a good thing? And when I asked you about that, the reason I asked, because obviously maxing something out, like, yeah, it's great. We took advantage of everything we could, but I don't have my finger on the pulse when it comes to what every single paddle's deflection is, and that's why I asked you. And I think that you replied something like, yeah, the majority of paddles come in at a 0.003 or 0.004 deflection, whereas we came in at 0.005. So that was kind of cool.
It's absolutely a good thing. Very few paddles do it. So yeah, and that was part of the design. I had some contingency plans. I already understood, from the material science that this paddle was going to be close on deflection.
Right.
We're either just going to squeak by or it was going to fail. And if it failed, I already had some contingency plans, backups for you to just stiffen it up just a little bit to help the deflection score, but hopefully keep most of the play characteristics. But hey, we either got lucky or we knew what we were doing because we nailed it. So.
Perfect. Okay, so hey, I know we've kind of been rambling on here, and I didn't expect to go this long. But the last thing I wanted to kind of ask you, from your background, was with the given weights. I obviously have provided a little file, but would you just quickly, and I don't, whatever level of detail, I just wanted for anybody watching that doesn't really know how to weight a paddle, would you be able to give them a quick little brief summary of where you could put certain weights for certain to bring out different attributes on a paddle?
Yeah, and so you did nail it on your site. So if anybody who gets this paddle can check out the QR, and it's perfect. But yeah, the weights are essentially, you got to think about them, how they're going to affect the paddle vertically and horizontally, right? So the vertical part is easy. The higher up you go, or the further away from the handle you put a weight, the heavier it will make the paddle feel and swing, right? So you may want the paddle to swing a little heavier because you want a little bit more leverage and power from it, and a little bit more what we call like plow through, like it's going to push the ball. So meaning that then if you put a weight here versus a weight here, the one that's further away from the handle is going to make the paddle feel heavier and swing heavier and have more power, right? And of course the maximum version of this would be put it all the way at the very top. That's as far away as you can get. The inverse is true. The closer to the handle you put it, the less difference you're going to feel in your hand in the weight or the swing weight of the paddle. So all the way down here, it's going to be far less noticeable than way up here. Okay, so that's the vertical axis, and these kind of work together. Horizontally, now you're going to work with what we call like twist weight, which is essentially a proxy for stability. So the further away from the center of the paddle you put a weight, the more effect it's going to have. The more stable it's going to make the paddle, the more it's going to make the paddle resist twisting. And you're probably wondering, when would a paddle twist? Well, imagine I hold the paddle to hit a shot, and I hit a bad shot, and the ball hits way over here near the edge of the paddle. Well, a lot of that energy is going to make the one paddle twist in my hands, which then is lost energy that doesn't go back into the ball dies. However, you add weight further out, now it's going to resist twisting more. It twists less, so more energy goes back into the ball. Therefore, the ball goes further off the face, hence a bigger sweet spot, because now the shots that are further away from the center respond better. So the same can be said as far as horizontal. If you put a weight right down here at the throat, not very far off the center, it's not going to make that much difference for twisting. But if you go the maximum distance you can, which of course is the side, then you're going to get the maximum amount of twist weight and stability. So usually the ideal places to place weight are along the sides, which are as far from the center as you can get horizontally. And then you will just tune sort of up and down from here based on how heavy or how light you want the paddle to swing or feel, but keeping along the sides. This is kind of your min-max zone. Now, you may get niche and put some on the top or put some on the throat, but for the most part, these are the most ideal locations along the horizontal sides of the face.
Perfect. Thank you for thanks for explaining all that. You explain it a lot better than I do. So I think that, taking that information, it helps to give a little bit of background and knowledge. And then, like you said, like we have set up, scan the QR code, you could go to our site, and there's 3 basic setups, but and that's to get you started. And then, with everything that you said, I think that somebody can take that knowledge and kind of do a little bit more exploration. So appreciate it.
Yeah, and it's all about feel. We talked about numbers, but it's all about feel. So you just go out there and say, you play the paddle stock, and you'd be like, I'm thinking it's plenty fast. I'm really fast at the net, but I want a little bit more power. Then okay, let me put some weight on because I'm okay with slowing it down a little bit.
Yeah.
To trade off, because everything's a trade off.
Right.
Trade off for more power. So then you try the weights, and then maybe you try them really high on the paddle, and you say, ooh, that was too much of a trade-off. Now it feels very powerful, but a little bit slower than I like. Okay, cool. Just move the weights down a little bit. Try it again. Right. Just feel it out. The actual numbers don't really matter for playability. Sure, we're talking about them for engineering because we want to, build a paddle that hits our specs and gets it to the right place where players can just pick it up and play with it or pick it up and go from there. It's like a great starting point. But once it's in your hands, it's all about how it feels.
Yeah. Appreciate that. Well, Justin, we've gone about 40 minutes longer than I told you we were going to go. But
Dude, is this your first time talking to me? Hey, this is what I do. You know what I mean? Just ramble and make everything longer than it needs to be.
Well,
but I just love talking about paddles.
Yeah, I don't do these podcasts. And you asked earlier if I had a thought, and my thought was I was thinking about this as you were talking, because I'm talking to you obviously through my computer, but then I have the high quality video recording. Well, I put the video above it, so my eyes for this podcast are going to be kind of going down. But you know what?
Yeah.
Hopefully people give me a little grace. This is the first time I've done this, so.
Totally normal, by the way. My eyes are a little off center. It's normal podcast conversational eyes. So I'm not looking directly into the soul of the viewers the whole time. You don't have to. So
for sure.
It's all good.
Well, Justin, dude, thanks again for your time, and more importantly, thanks for working with me. And I gave you a lot of guidelines to work within, and you were very flexible and a pleasure to work with. And I'm looking forward to continuing to work with you on these next paddles, and hopefully we can get something launched before the end of the year. And like I said, the whole process has been awesome. I appreciate your patience and you being so willing to meet everything that we said and giving Maverix so much praise. So we wouldn't be here today with this paddle without you. So thank you.
Hey man, pleasure's all mine. I look forward to everything to come for sure.
Cool. All right, Justin. Well, thanks again, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right.
Cool.
Bye.
See ya.